Okay, folks, here we go again. Deshaun Miller here from Warrior Concepts with our Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Whiteboard. Anyway, for those of you joining in live, fantastic. And if not, if you're watching the recording later, that's okay as well. Not doing the whole martial arts uniform today, right? We're actually restarting something we did pre-COVID and whatnot as a part of the whole self-defense focus here at the Academy. And that is 2 days out of every month, we assign as street clothes days because there are lots of variables, right, in a self-defense situation. One of which is what you're wearing or what he's wearing, right, or what they're wearing, right, and how that fits into or works well with or not with the environment that we're in, the ground surface that we're on, the techniques we're trying to apply, all of those things, right? So 2 days out of every month, when students come to class this week, it's or this month, it's tomorrow and Friday, right? So if you're listening in and you're with the Academy, then Thursday and Friday of this week, the 17th and 18th of February, street clothes days, right? So if you come to class in uniform, everybody's going to be staring at you like you're the odd guy out instead of what we normally do when a new student comes in, they're trying things out and they're in street clothes, right? So what we tell people is don't do anything different, right? Don't go out of your way to like wear loose fitting, comfortable clothes, things that move easily, unless that's what you wear on a normal basis. No, don't wear that, right? Come in dressed in either one certain style or type of work clothes, if you have different types, right? Or the type that you wear on a regular basis, things that you might travel in, things that you might lounge around the house in, whatever, right? And every month I better be seeing a different clothing style because you never know what you might have on when somebody's coming at you, right? So we do this because, not just because this is what we wear, right? We need to understand how our clothing, right, can be used against us or can help us work with certain things, how certain clothing styles allow for certain techniques to work and how certain clothing styles might inhibit certain techniques, all that stuff, right? Including shoes, right? Including shoes. These are things that we typically can't do when we're training in Japan because they've got these tatami on the floor, not just because Japanese society requires that you change from outdoor shoes to indoor shoes and we're in tabi and all that, but because outdoor shoes and outdoor tabi as well, right, tend to like rip up and tear up the tatami, right? That's just not good, right? I tend to set up my school so that things are a little bit different. And we still have this broad open area, all that, right? So in addition to clothing, don't forget that you need to train and work your different techniques in different environments, different scenarios, on different ground surfaces, right? So street clothes days kind of starts to hint in that direction as the weather begins to change here where I live. Spring starts to set in. One Saturday training per month will be outdoor skills day, right? And so those classes may be normal curriculum being done that day, or it might be things that, I don't know, we might be teaching how to make rope out of grass or whatever, kind of hinting toward the survival skills, those kind of things, right? But again, we take everybody out to a local park or in a little section, we might take them out to the parking lot, out back from behind the dojo and all that. And what we want people then to do is understand, again, they're in street clothes, right? They're in a regular clothes, but what's it like rolling across uneven terrain? What's it like moving and stepping where the ground is not flat and even and we're in a sterile environment, right? We might put them in an area where there are trees or brush or other types of impediments where they're going to have to worry about those kind of things, right? It's a perfect opportunity to practice stepping back into kamae, but there's a step behind you and your leg bumps into it and you've got, I know you can't see my legs moving, but where you bump into it and you have to be moving freely on balance, right? You bump into this thing, you're able to pick your leg up and step up onto it. Or I know there's a curb behind me and when I step back, I have to keep my body upright, right? So when I step, I have to overflex my lead leg so that I can drop down. So one foot's on one plane, one foot's on another, but the torso and the kamae is exactly the way it needs to be, right? So no offense, but I can't trust students to do practice every day at home, let alone these extra specialty topics that are critical to mastery and development. So guess what? We wire it into things instead of just telling people that they have to do it, right? So then what ends up happening is people get to pick and choose whether or not they're going to come to class or not on those days. right? So let me just switch something here because I didn't bring up something on the screen. And again, it's the problem with me being chief cook and bottle washer here. We're bringing more people on board, but it should be that one right there. There it is. Okay. So anyway, as usual with the topics that I'm covering during these Whiteboard Wednesdays, the Friday, right, following it, right, so this Friday, the 18th, we're going to be doing a deep dive in our master's class, in our Shinobi Kai class here at the dojo, diving into this thing. So that being said, let me get off this other stuff, right, this diversion kind of thing, but it's the variables, right? It's all these things that are not written in the scrolls for the traditionalist, right? It's the things that people tend to not focus on because they're so enamored by the cool moves, right? What are the cool moves teaching? Right? What are they trying to convey to you? What did the past masters either hide or try to hint at or convey through these models that become an idea that, or not become an idea, they are an idea, right? That you're supposed to extrapolate, you're supposed to pull out. Extrapolate, that's like a $50 word out of a $5 mouth, right? Anyway, you're supposed to pull this thing out and then work with it in other different ways. And we'll cover that kind of idea in a different Whiteboard Wednesday. But just as a recap, because this is a part 2 on what we did last week, right? In this Gyokko school, there's this concept that I just translated this way. How it's said in Japanese is not that important. And if it's that important to you, then you're missing out on the really, really important stuff, right? So what I call it is 3 in 1, 1 in 3, right? So it's 2 different ways to look at things, right? So 3 in 1, 1 in 3, right? So I kind of outlined it last week. You could go back and look at that in its entirety and kind of pick up on it. But just a quick review. What we're looking at is 2 ways to look at this, right? So 3 in 1, which is what we just did this past virtual deep dive class, right? Is we've got a technique or skill, could be rolling, could be leaping, could be a certain sword cut, whatever, right? Something, right? And then what we're looking at doing is splitting that into 3 aspects, minimum 3 aspects, because you can break this down into arm movement and just the striking part or just a specific strike within the technique, the footwork, the weight transition, all kinds of things, right? But what we did last week is just take a look at it based on the timeline of the way a fight works. And so we had entering, right? How the hell do we get in there without him punching us in the face or blocking everything we have or whatever, right? And that's really where our Sanshi no Kata come in. They teach this idea of penetration, of getting in there without having a problem, right? So we're covering important things on the way in. This is a whole block of study, okay? And if you were in on this last virtual class, we did that. We took a given model and broke it down. Of course, I also threw something at them that looked like it violated the principle, and that became their homework assignment, right? So anyway, there's this entering. How do I get in there, right? And then there's this delivery phase, right, where we're doing the do, right? We're delivering our technique. We're smack him in the ass with a boat paddle, whatever, right? Okay, so we got this thing going on, and then as it's successful, right, and they're going down or being knocked back or whatever's going on, right, and then we have this phase where it's control or finish, right? So I may have delivered something that's just causing them to pass out, and as they're falling, right, the finish is me backing off to make sure that they are down and out, or they're picking their nary ass up and running off, or whatever it is, right? Or I've done something where they're sliding down my body and I'm able to catch for an arm bar or something, and I can lock them up and hold them or slip cuffs on them or whatever my job happens to be, right? Hold them in place for the cops to show up, whatever, okay? So anyway, so that's what we looked at this last time, right? So this is one way to look at it, where there's at least 3 aspects in any given technique, right? What we talked about just a little bit that we're going to dive into this time, right, is we're actually going to flip this, right? We're going to look at it a little bit differently, right? Where we have a principle or a concept, right? I know some of you like already started to get like all shaky and the hair on the back of your neck started to stand up and you got that goose pimply kind of stuff going on because I said principal and you know you were a not nasty. You were a troublemaker in school and the word principal and being sent to the principal's office, not that kind of principal, right? They even spelled it differently, right? Not that kind of principal, right? So we're looking at it as a principle, concept, idea, strategy, whatever, right? Okay. This is the gas that makes any given technique go. It makes it work, right? If we can see a technique, a model, step-by-step physical form as like my car, right? The car doesn't go anywhere unless I put fuel in it, right? And it has to be the right kind of fuel for that engine, right? All the fluids that I put in there have to be the right thing for that mechanism, okay? That's the same thing going on here. There is a kotsu, there is an essential nature to any given technique. There's the what it's doing, okay? And this is way past it's kicking his ass. Duh, right? But if you don't get a lot of this stuff right, that only becomes an assumption. Because if you get this stuff wrong, maybe it's not his ass is getting kicked, okay? So this principle, and then what we're doing is not breaking out. This is the breaking out thing. This is a tying together. This is a looking at different techniques, at least 3. Again, 3 and 1, right? But could be 4, could be 5, whatever, right? What you now start to do is look at your techniques in a way where you recognize that all of them, regardless of what they look like, they could look vastly different. This is not a Henka idea, right? From the Shinden Fudo Ryu, this is a Waza idea, right? But what's happening is they're all the essential nature, the kotsu, right? For those of you who need this, right? Kotsu, right? Essence, right? Not the kanji for kotsu bone or the kanji for kotsu sternum, okay? Funny story. I learned this way back in the day. I was experiencing this one class. And you got to make sure that you're not you got to catch yourself on these things, right? You got to make sure you're not falling into some of these traps. One of the traps is a master teacher's teaching, right? And somebody that's got a really big freaking ego in the God realm and all that, where they need to know everything. They need to present themselves like they make no mistakes, as my evil stepfather would have said, right? They act like their shit don't stink, kind of thing, right? Right. But you know, I'm teaching, or the master teacher's teaching, and they're standing here doing this, like they know, like, yeah. It's not a pensive look. They're looking at everybody else like, I know that, right? That kind of thing, right? Here's a cool thing, right? Kotsu is bone, right? Shrei Sensei, one of my teachers in Japan, originally put me onto this little cool idea, right? The sternum, right, in Japanese is called kotsu, right? The word for ego, or one of the words for ego in Japanese, guess what? It's kotsu as well. I know it's a different kanji, right? But it's kotsu, right? So in Japan, the sternum is known as the big ego bone, because people with a big ego walk around doing this kind of thing, right? So one of our jobs is to help deflate that little thing, right? But anyway, right? But we're not talking about those things, right? Essence, the essential nature. What is the idea? What is the strategic agenda of this technique? Other than putting the guy down, other than shutting him off, whatever. How is it that you're controlling them? That's what gives the kata its name. So when we're looking at Henka variation, there's a huge difference between doing an authentic Henka of any given kata and doing whatever you want, doing something completely different. Okay? It's not that thing doesn't work. It's just not the same thing, right? And ultimately, right, we want to win, right? But there's this control idea, and there's this what's being done, right? There's tactical things that are going on. There's a strategic agenda or plan, right? And then the techniques are chosen, and actually the tactics are chosen to fulfill this thing. It's kind of like, I want to go on vacation. Great. Where? Right? Because if I decide, from where I live, I'm on the east coast of the United States, right? If I decide that I'm going to go to Disneyland in California, or I'm going to go to Disney World in Florida, I'm pointing this and that way because I inherited this from my wife. To her, north, east, south, and west is always in the same direction, no matter which way she's pointing. But anyway, I love her, right? So if I just go, yeah, we're going to Disney for Christmas, or we're going to Disney for a vacation, I better know which one and which is which. Because Disneyland is a lot longer drive, flight, whatever. Takes a whole lot more logistics for me. And it's also west of me. Disney World, I can do that in 11, 12-hour drive. If I take extra rest breaks, probably 18 hours. Anyway, right? So I could drive that, the amount of time it took me to drive to an airport, park, fly, get all my luggage together, rent a car, whatever, right? So, but it's south. It's from where I am, geographically, it's south. So I need to know where I am and where I'm going, right? So what I choose and how I plan, the tactics, the techniques, whatever, right? If I'm flying, techniques are different. That's pulling luggage, navigating an airport, hiring a cab, whatever it is, right? If I'm driving, I have to have a whole different set of techniques. I'll be pulling luggage less, right? Because they're going in the trunk of my car, and then I need a different skill set, right? This is where we start to point, right? But anyway, techniques. In the beginning, they're just a thing, right? They're just a set of moves, right? But people in the beginning, it's right that they focus on getting the model right. Okay, they need to copy what their teacher's doing. In another class, another one of these Whiteboard Wednesdays, we're going to cover this concept of shuhari, right? Shuhari, right? It's this old Japanese training model. Okay, so we'll cover that then, right? But this is like first stage training, right? Copy what your teacher's doing. Get the technique right, form-wise, right? This ha idea is where variation and this idea of not breaking it this way, but there's a whole other way of breaking it out. This is tied in. These things are all tied in to the same principle, or are using the same principle this way, right? This breaking kind of thing actually works this way, right? Where you take any given technique and you break it out, and you're looking at things in a different way that way, right? But this is breaking things up so you can understand that I can do the same thing many different ways. But you need to understand this thing I'm covering today to help do that, right? Because we need to understand the essential nature and the principle that's driving it, right? We need to be able to do that, right? And then this last part here, that means transcend, and that's where everybody wants to go. They don't say it that way. What they fantasize about is moving around like a master teacher or like the grandmaster or whatever. So that's what they want, but they're not willing to do the hard stuff in here. They think if they learn these and do it really, really cool and really, really fast, and they can memorize it, they can spit out a whole bunch of historical details and stuff, and they can look and sound like this guy, that makes them the same or makes their development level the same. Ain't true. It's not. Okay. You can look any way you want. Okay. But if I dress up like Elvis, it doesn't make me Elvis. Okay? It doesn't make him an Elvis impersonator. We need to be clear that there was Elvis and there are Elvis impersonators. They can sound like him. They can look really, really close to him. They can dress like him and all that, but it's not the same. Okay. Because there's a whole bunch of other things that you can't see that made Elvis Elvis. And for those of you that think that I'm too freaking old because I'm mentioning Elvis, who cares? Make it Beyonce. Make it whoever your favorite artist is now. And trust me, in Las Vegas or in some of these other places in the world, there are a butt ton of impersonators for that person. Okay? All right. So we'll talk about that later, but this is actually a part of that hop level. That hop means to break, right? So what we need to do is kind of break things up, look at variations, but we need to examine it from a different direction to understand more than step-by-step form. Okay? Kata, the word kata means form. And there's a couple of different ways to write it. You'll see it some ways in some martial arts and other ways in another. The way it's written in our lineages, kata, it means form, but it implies a model. It implies an example, of how something might look using these principles. Okay, so let's jump into this thing, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you one example today, right? And it's a fairly simple one that most people should know, but if you really want to dive deep into this, meet us on Friday for this virtual thing. The it's right there, that URL, right? If you go there, I'll explain things at the end here, but you can join us virtually as we do this stuff in the dojo. I'll be doing a different set of techniques then, but you can circle back and apply these this way, right? We want to dive deep into the principle and the idea. It doesn't matter what techniques or forms we're doing. What matters is that you get the idea. So today I'm going to explain it one way, but this is actually kind of tricky, right? Call it ninja manipulation, right? Out of the ninja no uge, right? If I show you one set of kata and that's it, chances are, if you think you have it, just with those, great. I mean, you can go do your thing, right? But my hope is that you're going to look at this as one example and go, how would that look with what's a different principle? What are these principles, right? There's only like half a dozen in this entire art that all of these models, and whether you have weapons or whatever, if you master those principles and concepts, okay, then you can say, I think I understand it pretty well, right? Although those of us who are on a path for mastery would never call ourselves masters, ever, because the horizon is just as far away from me now as it was when I got started. What I have to do to make sure that I don't feel lost or like I'm never going to understand anything is every once in a while I have to review. I have to look back and see how far I've come, because if you're actually training and you don't make assumptions like, if I learned this, then I have mastered the art. Had somebody post something on Facebook about that, right? Those of us who have mastered the art already know this. Duh. I went, great, fantastic. I go about my business, okay? I'm okay with letting people wallow in their own delusion, unless you're one of my students and you come to me, in which case I'll slap that delusion out of you. All right, anyway, so let's get back to this thing, right? So let's see. There is a technique. It's in the Kyonap-bo. For those of you who are generally training in the Bujinkan, right? It shows up in many different forms throughout different schools, right? Different base models and those kind of things, right? It's omote gyokko, right? Omote gyokko is, I guess it's a decent expedient, but it can really throw you off as far as what you're doing, right? Omote gyokko is often translated as a outside wrist twist, okay? Nothing in here says wrist twist, okay? Nothing, right? It's actually a part of the gyakute, okay? Gyakute, te, hand, like in karate, not karate, okay? Karate, te, hand, right? Another way to say hand, shu, like in shuto, hand blade, right? So gyakute, gyaku means to reverse or turn over, okay? So omote gyaku, right? Omote means frontal, obvious, that kind of thing, right? It can imply outside. And when I say outside, what I mean is I'm looking right at it. It's the outer presentation of things, right? Outside, reversal. Okay? What are we reversing? See, gyakute, hand. Are we really? In another Whiteboard Wednesday coming up, we're going to be taking a look at how to effectively and easily apply joint locks, right? By looking at what you should actually be doing and recognizing the three joints and they all work together. And the one you think you're going after, if you're just looking from the outside, ain't it. Okay? All this stuff is hidden, right? So omote gyaku is a technique, right? And it doesn't matter how it's done at the moment, but the hand is taken and it's rotated outside the body, right? The palm is taken this way. There's another one called ura gyaku that goes this way, right? So ura, hidden, back, right? That kind of thing, right? It's the other direction, right? So this way, right? A lot of people learn these things, right? And then they learn a bunch of other techniques as well. and they tend to get compartmentalized, right? This is omote gyaku. This is mushadori. This is onikudaki. This is osotonage, where I'm taking the guy and throwing him on his ass. You know, those kind of things, right? Okay. So omote gyaku, yes, is a technique. Omote gyaku is also a principle. Okay, let me be clear about this, right? I don't know if in any of the scrolls you're going to find omote gyaku principle, okay? But we're reversing things, right? And we understand that we're reversing more than just the hand. And when we get our heads away from this dumbass English translation of wrist twist, right? Kote gaish is the closest you're going to get to something like that. Kote is wrist or forearm. Gaish is to turn it over, okay? That's the closest you're going to get to something called a wrist twist or something that could be implied that way, but it's done differently, right? It's not the same, okay? So it's a principle, right? So let me go back through those 4 techniques. I know I said 3, but 4 techniques that I just named. Omote gyaku, mushadori. Mushadori means warrior catch or seizing the warrior. Okay. Mushadori onikudaki. Doesn't matter if it's omote or ura. Kudaki. Okay. Onikudaki means crushing the devil, crushing the demon. Oni is a demon or devil. Kudaki comes from the verb kudaku, which means to crush, right? So onikudaki and osotonage. Osotonage. We use it as an expedient as well. Rear hip throw, that kind of thing, but it doesn't translate to rear hip throw. Nothing on here says rear. Nothing says hip. Nage is the closest you're going to get to anything because it's a throw, right? Okay. Osoto means great outer throw. There's also osotokari, osotogake, right? Great outer sweep, great outer reap, those kind of things, right? Find these different things, right? But all of these use omote gyaku principle. So what the hell is omote gyaku principle? Let me draw my tabi toes again. My little feet here, okay? With birth defect, right? The feet aren't exactly the same. Okay. So omote gyaku principle is understanding. I have to understand how this thing is built, right? How this body is built, right? We have to recognize that we're bipeds, right? That means we have 2 points of contact with the ground. We're in a constant state of shifting balance and how the body adjusts for those things, right? So the omote gyaku principle takes advantage of the fact that our legs, right, come down and plug into the feet right around here. Okay, this point just in front of the ankle that we're concerned with and all that, right? But it plugs down this way, so we've got way less out here, back this way, than we have out here, right? The toes can flex and all that. The waist can bend and everything. It's harder to break somebody's balance that way. It's easy for them to step. They can take a bigger, deeper step, all kinds of things, right? It's a whole other ball game, right? So what we recognize is that the omote gyaku principle, whoops, I'm going to use a different color. I'm all about colors today, right? So omote gyaku principle is, how do I get the balance to break in that direction without him being able to step very well to catch himself? I want to take him off his heels backwards, right? So if we can get past the form and this compartmentalized thinking, right? We recognize that omote gyaku does that. Mushadori does that. Onikudaki does that. Osotonage does that, right? Okay. And this is the big version, right? The upper, intermediate, and advanced versions are we get him into this position where the body locks itself up to not fall down. And in that moment, we can break them in place. But in the beginning, right, early stages of training, you're working on your technique. He's working on break falls. So this is a way that I can do it, control it, bring him to, that kind of thing, right? But you need to know both, right? Everybody wants to jump ahead and do the killer stuff, right? Well, why am I doing this? If it's some jackwagon on the street that you notice there's a bulge under their arm or in this hoodie pocket, which is one of the two major places that thugs who steal guns and can't afford holsters, right? Keep a weapon, knife, gun, whatever, right? If you recognize this odd shape, right, and you want to keep somebody from getting at it, you want to kick in this moral response where their arms move away from it, then I want to be able to do that, right? And I may need to snap this guy in place with something so that he can't use that hand to grab for that weapon, right? So, and again, people tend to position weapons for easy access with their dominant hand, okay? So anyway, see all these things that it's not written out in the scrolls, right? But the right instructor can point out for you to help make sure that you get the right training and you're in the right direction and you're not just learning monkey moves, right? Important stuff, okay? So, there's this guy, right? I don't care snapping him in place because this guy meant to beat, break, or kill me, right? But what about drunk Uncle Bob at the family picnic? Gets a little belligerent. I'm trying to calm him down. He takes a swing, right? I don't care if you like Uncle Bob or not, okay? Context, right? How's everybody else? How's Aunt Minnie? How's your wife? How's whatever? How are these people going to treat you afterwards if you break Uncle Bob in place? Because you know what? You touch me. Really? For everybody? Right? You can't adjust and make, right, contextual decisions. Your skill set is either on or off. Okay? Remember, I keep reminding people this over and over again. You can't protect the people you think you're going to be protecting from two places in the world. Right? You know what they are, right? Jail and the morgue. Okay? So part of our self-protection training and part of ninja thinking is, how do I not end up over there? Okay? So anyway, but this is all about breaking this thing out, right? So I may need to do what we might call the beginner's model to lay Uncle Bob down or to bring him down without snapping and breaking him, right? So how do I do that? The more I know about how to control something and the fact that all these techniques I just named all have something primary in common, okay? No matter what principle we move forward with, most of them have the same thing in common, okay? Lock the spine, immobilize the feet, and make it virtually impossible for them to step, kick, or move in your direction. But that all boils down to seize the spine, which locks the feet. If he can move, he can unlock things, right? So while everybody's focusing on what we're doing to the hand, what we're doing to the elbow, what we're doing to the shoulder, how we're throwing him on his butt, what they're really missing is the fact that they have no control over the core systems in the body that when you have control of them, his body doesn't function well. I don't have to break it to have it not function. I can lock it to have it not function. And if I understand what to lock, I can make his legs not move well. And if he can't move to get at me or to escape or to resist, everything changes, right? So Omote Gyokko principle is taking them off their heels, right? Ura Gyokko, right? It's the opposite. That's a whole principle. There's a bunch of these things going on, right? As a matter of fact, most of these whiteboard things is a principle, right? But here's this other one, right? So and I know there's 4, right? There's way more techniques than just these that take somebody off their heels or that lock them at the back of their feet so that they can't function in that direction. And any kind of resistance knocks them farther backwards. So it doesn't matter if you do it or they do it. This is an ability that I require for my people going for 4th degree, right? Able to deliver the technique in a way that he can't not only escape or get at you or whatever, but it doesn't matter if you turn up the volume or he resists harder, it all backfires on him. Okay? That's mastery. That's We're not talking about being able to do the same model faster, harder, whatever. And never forget, right? If your technique is wrong, doing it faster or harder doesn't make it right. Right? It makes it wrong, faster and harder. Right? Anyway, all right. So that's a lesson for the day, right? We're looking at this idea where if we understand a unifying principle, it's the fuel that can go in multiple types of cars, right? The gas I put in my car can go in my brother's pickup truck, go in my father-in-law's riding mower. It's the same type of fuel, right? The vehicles look different because they were designed for different purposes, but ultimately they do the same thing, okay? Anyway, so there's this thing, right? So this time it's 1 in 3, right? What's the one principle in these 3 or more techniques, right? So here's where this will go a little bit more in the deep dive, but later on what we can start to take a look at is what I call throw flow, whole other class for that, right? Throw flow, where I'm in the middle of doing one of these techniques and he catches himself or starts to escape. Well, that doesn't mean that I can suddenly like change direction because everything about me is going in one direction, right? So what do I know about the connectedness of these techniques that I can go from one to another, execute? I can slip from one. Let's say I'll show you an example, right? I'm doing this this onikudaki, right? Taking the arm this way, right? And he does this. Before this locks up, he does this. Drops it out so that I can't move his arm like that. And if I do move his arm, that's going to rotate this shoulder around and he can jack me in the head, right? So if I'm going this way and this thing drops, right? So I've got these positions this way, and that thing slips, I know that I can drop my arm straight down in because he put his arm here for me. So now I'm in this mushadori. We just went from onikudaki to mushadori. He's leading the dance. My mentality is whatever you want to do is cool with me, dude. But I do have to have options, and I have to be good at those techniques to be able to slip in. But here's the thing, right? The strategy, and this is for my guys that are 3rd degree and above, okay? The principle is paramount when there's a strategy, like I need to get this guy on his back, or I need to get this guy on his stomach, or whatever, right? I have to get him down in a certain place. So let's say it's this way, right? There's a reason I'm taking him this way, okay? So we're going from here, he slips to here, I slide in, and I shift right into, to beginners, it looks like a completely different technique. Oh, sensei, that was slick. Except that I'm still taking him off his feet and still down behind himself to keep the same logic going. It's important stuff. Not if you only plan to get the 1st degree black belt, or your goal is this vague, I'd love to have a black belt, need you to. Really? Shit. Call up Asian World of Martial Arts or Century Martial Arts or Tiger Claw or whatever, right? Order yourself a black belt. Okay? There's a bunch of people online that will write out a friggin' black belt certificate for you for whatever art you want, whatever rank you want. Getting that kind of goal accomplished is friggin' easy, right? But be careful what kind of goal you set for yourself. I'd love to have a black belt and needed to. Okay? Go to somebody who gives black belts really, really quickly. There you go. Psst. Happy? That's like somebody saying, man, I'd love to train in martial arts. Great. Call up a martial arts school or a club. Go take a class. Goals accomplished. You have successfully trained in the martial arts. Vagueness begets vagueness. Same thing. If I'm only learning the monkey moves, and that's good enough for me because it's important for me to impress myself, soothe ego, have bragging rights for other people and whatnot, your training is going to be very different from what I'm describing. In which case, stop following these things, because all you're going to hear in your head when I'm teaching is this: wah, 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 wah. Because I'm not entertaining you, right? I'm telling you what you shouldn't be doing as well as what you should be doing. Anyway, we're going to stop that. All right. So if you want more of this, right, we're going to take a look at a different principle. We're actually going to take a look at the forward principle because it's not as obvious, right? Everybody's going to think, looking at this, that Ura Gyokko, right, takes them in the opposite direction, right? Then it's all about here. And they're wrong, because our front balance line is not off the toes. off the heels. That's why it's omote. It's obvious. Shit, you can't adjust that while going backwards. Going forwards, there's several body systems that will correct for this even before you step. So the balance line is not here. It's way over there. And what you have to understand with this principle is how to move that line at least back to here for the upper level people, how to move it all the way back here so that you can do things that are supposed to take somebody forward, but you can use omote Gyokko principle, delivering these techniques that teach you ura Gyokko, bring it all the way back, and you can break them down in the opposite direction. You can do what looks like breaking the rules. Everything, right, transcends the previous level. Depends on what you want, okay? Depends on what you want, right? If you just want to earn a black belt, then just earn a damn black belt. Go about your business. Call it a day, right? It's just another thing that you've collected in your life, like going to an amusement park and buying a shit ton of souvenirs. Now you got lots of memories. But if you want the ability to control another human body or more that are coming at you to send you to the emergency room or the morgue, then you need a lot more than that. Right? Some other time I'll talk about a story, not a story, but something Hatsumi Sensei was teaching in class, and he invited some of us with real world experience to convey, right? So maybe I'll share this on during the Friday virtual call or whatever. But anyway, so if you want to get on that, there's this URL right here, right? You go there. I don't do free webinars anymore. I mean, I'm almost at 45 minutes on this one, right? I mean, this is big, high level kind of things, but now we need to work on the boots on the ground. What does that look like technique wise, right? So I don't do those things anymore, right? Free, right? People show up, they think they're going to learn a bunch of stuff, and they do, right? But that's all they want. They just run around the internet, tire kicking things, right? Collecting a whole bunch of free stuff, and then thinking that they're going to turn into a master. So anyway, so what I'm doing is my main group, my Shinobi Kai people, my long distance inner circle people, all that, right? Twice a week, we do these classes. What I'm offering you is a Friday thing where I've set aside the time to work on this and go even deeper. Again, we're going to look at a different principle, but it's the cheapest you're going to get working with me, right? It's $4.99 for the class, okay? Those of you that are in my inner circle and or Shinobi Kai at the class in the dojo, don't sign up for that. Well, yeah, don't sign up for this because it's already included in your stuff. Now, if you're leadership or whatever, and you know whatever, and don't worry about not being able to make it. All these things are recorded, right? You will get lifetime access to whatever lessons you pick up from me. All right, but $5, seriously, $5, okay? And it doesn't even come to me. It pays for all this stuff, so I can provide free things to you. What's free to you is not free to me. Okay, and I'm not saying I don't want to sound like your dad, right? You know, my money doesn't grow on trees. I just need you to realize that it cost me for all these services and everything that we're doing, all this artwork and all this stuff to deliver this to you, so that you can have free training. I can't wait till some of the grammar Nazi or the spelling Nazis comment on the email that I sent out that said, this training is FAHREE, FAH-REE, FAHREE. Are you like sounding ghetto now? Or are you sounding this? No, okay. Ninja strategy. I have to get past the email protection for you, because if I put the word free in there are so many spammers putting stuff out that if I put the word free in your email, 9 times out of 10, your email service will throw that into your junk or spam pile and you'll never see it. So I have to trick the system so that you can see something you might be half interested in. All right. Anyway, there's a lot more to this. Stay with the Whiteboard Wednesdays. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe to my page that's over there. Same link if you're watching on YouTube. Kind of get that stuff. Or if you're on Facebook, right, we've got online ninjutsu training. We have the Kuden podcast page. Maybe even on my personal page, this stuff is streaming through. It might even be going through on LinkedIn as well. But if you're connected to me and you want more of it, make sure you like or share or whatever it is that you need to do for the algorithm to make sure you keep seeing things. All right. That's it. That's all I got. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to me. Warrior C, WARRIOR, the letter C, not the word, not the ocean, right? Warrior C at warrior-kai.com. concepts-online.com. Dash is a minus sign or a hyphen, right? I keep saying dash because I've said hyphen and people are like, never mind. You don't want to know the word that they kick back anyway, right? So it's not the underscore, right? It's the line in the middle, right? So Warrior C at warrior-concepts-online.com. Shoot it to me, and I'll answer as quickly as I can. Normally, it's within 24 to 48 hours, 72 on a weekend or holiday. But you got to know that my personal inner circle students and my in-house students, their questions get answered first. Okay. But either way, right? At some point, maybe you get in on our spring camp that's coming up when the hell is that? April, or our fall camp that's at the end of September, very beginning of October, our Daikomyo-sai in January, or any of the other training and seminars that we've got going. But either way, first step, you want to go beyond this tire kicking freebie stuff. And I know this will carry you a long way, just this free class, right? But you want to take it farther? Join us on Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Hit the link. It's right there. Okay? And I'll see you in class. That's it. Talk to you soon.